What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today I'm going to take a look at Memoir of a Snail. This is from IFC Films. It's currently playing in theaters, and it does not have audio description. Wah, 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 wah. But I screened it anyway. And we're going to talk about it. So click like and subscribe, and let's go. Memoir of a Snail is from director Adam Elliot, who made his mark with Mary and Max, which I think, not. If you think that I constantly check the IMDb top 250 to see what's there, Mary and Max I know has been on there. I don't know if it's still on there. IMDb is a fickle friend, just living its life. So it might still be on there. He hasn't done a film since then, so it's been 15 years since 2009's Mary and Max. He's an Australian auteur, and I think that's going to get a lot of people attracted to this film, is the fact that it took him this long. It's handcrafted, stop motion animation, which always takes a while, especially when you're, I guess, when you're more or less not connected to like a powerhouse like GALECA, who has like a studio to produce things quicker, or any one of the other major studios that still works with stop motion animation. So this has been released, and it's got Sarah Snook, Kodi-Smit McPhee, Jackie Weaver in the voice cast. Basically, the story centers around Grace, who's born into this world with her brother, who's voiced by Kodi-Smit McPhee. And the two of them go through life. It's narrated from her perspective, so not from Cody's. Cody only weaves in and out as her brother. The same thing with Jackie Weaver, plays a lady who sort of weaves in to Grace's life and weaves out, and that's sort of how this works. I think the key word here to remember is memoir. And when you think about you're reading a memoir, you're reading generally something that's written from a first-person perspective. So instead of reading something that's written in third person about somebody, you're reading something that's written in the first person. And that is what this is. And in some ways, that has helped our blind audience. If you want to try to sit through this without audio description, there's no known audio description. This is one of the few times where I didn't even reach out to IFC. Usually I get a screener and I go, can I get an audio description track? This does, because it's playing in theaters, I know there's no audio description track for it because it's not playing in theaters with audio description. So they just didn't create one, which is upsetting and baffling, but because IFC is usually pretty good about creating an audio description track, it's just about where does it get used. So, and this coming from an Australian filmmaker with an English cast, I don't know why audio description wasn't created. But especially as an Oscar contender and everything, this is definitely going to get animated feature nomination. It's got like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know how it doesn't get in. I'm thinking about the other films this year, and just even before I really dive into this film, I'm just like, well, this feels like, at least, even if it slid in at number 5, like I can't think of. I've got like 2 films that I would consider locks at this point, and question marks after that. So I think a well-reviewed adult animated film could fit in this year. Maybe not every year, but definitely this year. So yeah, you want to make sure you give it as strong of a campaign as possible. Might be one of IFC's best shots at getting Oscar nominations this year. Sadly, because I don't think anybody's going to watch Ghostlight, which they all should be required viewing for every member of the Academy. I dare you to not watch it and nominate that. This shit is amazing. This is, from first person, means a lot of narration. So Grace basically talks over the whole thing, much like I'm doing in this video, from her perspective of life. And there's an upside and a downside to that. The upside is, from a blind person perspective, you're getting a lot of story. You're getting a lot of meat that we wouldn't pick up otherwise, that would normally be thrown into the, the way that a character reacts to something, or conversations. A lot of ways sometimes characters like stare off. Those, I love those moments, especially they work great for blind people without audio description in films. Those where those characters are just sort of like meditating on life, like staring out a window, and you're like, what's going on? I don't know. It's very quiet in the movie right now. I don't know what's happening. Oh, they must be meditating on life. That's what this scene is. It's a meditation scene. They're just staring out a window. I feel it. Anyway, so we avoid those scenes because she takes all of her thoughts and immediately puts them out there for the audience and navigates us through this story. So it's not a happy story. Her life is kind of sad. I kind of already watched this when I was depressed, so kudos. It worked. I went into the film depressed. I came out of the film more depressed. So choose when you watch this wisely. There are a couple scenes in here that I was just like, oh my God. Even though I didn't have audio description, I could understand the context of what was going on. And there was one scene, how do I say it without spoiling too much? I'm gonna say, we're gonna tag it so that you know what I'm talking about, that involved the burning of a church. There we go. It involved the burning of a church. And it's one of those if you know type of things. And that's the least interesting thing about that scene. But it also is the only time that a church burns. So yeah, that scene disturbed me for, I would say, obvious reasons. And there were a couple scenes like that throughout the film where I was just like, oh God, no, all right. It's interesting that it's called Memoir of a Snail, and you're like, well, why is that? Is it just a cute title they came up with? No, she collects snails. She likes snails because they move slowly through life, but they just keep moving. Just keep swimming. Just survive somehow. Whatever. That is their motto in life. And she also ends up having like guinea pigs. Yes, there is animated sex and nudity in here, and I could tell that without audio description because sounds, because of the sound design. She also talks about, I just love when people, I know it's like more of a British thing, but I love when people are like, he loves my wobbly bits. It's a great way of putting it. So it's a tough film to watch. The truth be told, as a blind film critic, speaking to often a predominantly blind audience, I would say it's unwatchable. You're going to be too frustrated with what's missing, and also the stuff in the design. I have watched enough sighted people talk about this movie that I conceptually understand what this movie is and what it's trying to do and what it's trying to say. Now, trying to pick up on those themes as an individual viewer myself, that's a bit hard. And like I said, it really is a double-edged sword, because one of the gifts about being able to watch a movie from beginning to end, not with a narrator hand feeding you everything, is to be able to explore the subtext of emotion through characters and through development over the course of time. So while it's a plus that moves it a little bit closer towards watchability to have the character do first person narration like they're reading their memoir, because then you understand They even explain their emotions, though. They even sort of explain like where they're coming from and how they feel, and how something made them feel. So because that stuff is included, you're not experiencing it so much through sort of contextual, emotional exploration, if that is, if that makes any sense to you. Where oftentimes we see movies that have very little dialogue or characters that don't speak at all, and somebody is able to pull so much emotion out of that. I think about how emotionally transformative WALL-E is with so little actual dialogue between two characters. Just the way the story is set up, and you can feel the emotional development of a character who doesn't say anything other than like names. Like, who doesn't have full speech abilities. And there's something to that that you get to discover that makes that kind of beautiful. And if somebody had narrated over WALL-E, I don't know that would have been, WALL-E felt sad in that moment. He knew he was alone, you know? Like, okay. Like, I mean, that's a choice, but I think it resonates differently. It hits differently. So I think the memoir aspect of this is going to work for some people. It seems to be working for most people, but it seems to be working also for film critics. So will it work for audiences? I don't know. I don't know if wide audiences, if this film went wide, would everybody like that format? I think in general, adults just aren't used to seeing animation that's made for them. Anomalisa, stuff like that. It's just, it never really, quite pops. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio did well because it was on Netflix. And that was a little bit walking a fine line as to whether or not, kids could watch that. Here you have, you would have to explain to your kids what a swinger is, and wobbly bits. And so it's not necessarily a film that's for kids. Also, the themes are very sort of adult, about like loneliness. But there are also a lot of themes here. I kind of wish this was PG-13, because I think there are a lot of things here about just keep pushing on and keep continuing that little kids don't generally have so much problem with in elementary school, when they're still sort of discovering things and everything is awesome because they just learned something new and that thing just seems so awesome. And they still get to have, a lot of kids still have that like shine of a childhood. I know not every kid, our world is just depressing shit sometimes, but little kids are still just in that, they're in a bubble. They can watch cartoons and sit in front of a TV and play with toys or play a little video game or something like that. And they're not thinking about these big life decisions. But there's something to be said about perseverance in this story that would benefit somebody, especially like a high schooler that was going through something. This would be a film for them. If I had a high schooler that was struggling, I might watch this with them. If I knew that they were, being bullied. Her character is bullied early on because she has a cleft palate, and she's left after the reconstruction surgery looking like she had cleft palate surgery. And luckily at that time she has a brother to help her through things. But, kids, that's something that kids can relate to, R-rated film or not. It's just, there's some of the other stuff. But by like high school, generally your kids know what this stuff is. So the R rating is always just sort of like that's why it's not NC-17, where it says no child under 17. It's always like R, like you could bring younger people to this. I think, honestly, you can bring your whole family. I just think your kids, your little ones, are going to fall asleep. It's just, even though there's animation, just the fact that there's an animation is not going to keep them awake. This is stuff that they don't understand. They're not going to follow. So when you get into that like elementary age, this is just not something they're going to resonate with. They're not thinking about being lonely and will anybody ever love me? Am I going to lose my virginity? You know, like those are things that don't actually resonate with elementary school children. You get past that and it's sort of like know your kid. And if you want to take your kid to this, fine. You know, it's not, um, there are certainly worse things they could be watching and probably are, and you just don't know it. So I think Memoir of a Snail is probably a good film. It definitely had moments and beats where I was like, oh, damn, oh yeah, that's some good stuff. But unfortunately, there are too many moments as a blind film critic where I was like, I don't know what's happening here, or I feel like I'm missing too much. And then when I watched a lot of and listened to other reviews of from critics that I generally agree with, generally align with, I would say, and the stuff that they were explaining, there was stuff that they would mention that definitely I didn't pick up on. So that was left out of the film. That was left out of my experience. And I was like, oh, I didn't pick up on that. Oh, I didn't get that. Oh, that wasn't in there. Oh, damn, you know? And so the fear of missing out, which is in some ways so very Grace of this moment, actually does kind of hit. So it becomes harder for me to actually give this film a grade, which I want to do, just so that you have an understanding of about where this film is. So it's going to be sort of like an ish understanding the fact that not everything was given to me, because audio description bridges the gap for blind and visually impaired. That's part of the reason I'm here doing this all the time, and why I choose to review films that don't have audio description as well, so that I can talk about what it was like to watch it. And there's that, like, part of me would not have appreciated the first person narrative format as much, especially as a sighted person. That would have annoyed old me. But now new me is like, well, at least she's telling me as much as she possibly can through her own memoir narration of her life. So it's sort of interesting how my life has turned around like that. I don't know where to necessarily put this. My thought process is that I think The Wild Robot is going to sweep animated feature anyway. So I think it's just looking for a nomination. And for me, it's not going to end up my favorite animated feature of the year. I wonder, even if I had audio description, if it would. I have Inside Out 2 still in my top 10. So for me, I don't know that this beats that. And I don't know that it can, because part of me is still a little hesitant to be told what somebody is feeling, instead of have the nuance of show. And I think one of the creative things about Inside Out is how they use those emotions and they work them in there and they manifest them. It's sort of like it's doing both. Like it's telling you what somebody is feeling because the emotion is something, but it's also showing you how a character that is representative of an emotion then translates into somebody's life. And I still find that to be interesting. So juxtaposing those films against it, where one film is openly telling you how somebody feels through first person versus the other, I think I would pick the creativity of Inside Out 2. But this is still a strong film, and I think if people have to wait 15 more years for another Adam Elliot film, I think they're probably going to lose their minds, because now he's got two really strong films out there that I think people overall are going to like. And he's building a little fan following for himself. So, Memoir of a Snail. If I had to guess where this film would land, maybe there's a little bit of disappointment in here because, again, accessibility problems, but I'm going to give Memoir of a Snail a B+. Like, emotionally, there is a lot of resonance here, and there's a lot of truth to what this film has to say about life. And that's what I liked out of it. Plus, it's only like an hour and a half. So there are worse movies that I could watch that are much longer that don't have audio description. So at least I was only in there for 90 minutes and then I was out. So, um, and there certainly are films with less talking in them that are worse experiences. But this is something I would recommend certainly to decided audiences. I think you guys will get something out of it. So if you are a subscriber, thank you. I love you. And if you're not, please do. Because yeah, I'd like to see you again. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.